What's up, everybody? Hi, how are you? Welcome to Rally Pharma. If you're new here, hi, Linda is my name. I'm a pharmacist and I'm registered in Kenya. And in this channel, I talk about health and pharmacy practice. So if that sounds good to you, please feel free to subscribe. Thank you. So in our series of careers in pharmacy, today I have a very, very special guest, and I would just want her to introduce herself, and she'll also introduce what she's going to talk about. So please, Janan, welcome, and please introduce yourself to my audience.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Janan Sarwar. I am a pharmacist by training, but a book publisher at heart, and I'm based in Louisville, Kentucky, USA.
Oh, awesome. So today we're actually going to talk about her career journey, like since she started as a pharmacist all the way until she reached to be a publisher and a TEDx speaker. Guys, I am hosting a TEDx speaker today. It feels so good. So yeah, please tell us about your pharmacist journey.
Absolutely. So I can actually start a little bit before of why did I choose pharmacy?
Yes.
In my undergraduate studies, I always thought that I wanted to do something related to medicine. While I was in pre-medicine, actually, I was studying for exams. I was in a biology class and an organic chemistry class, and I wasn't feeling very well one night. And in fact, I got sick. I had to go to the hospital, to the emergency room. And when I got there, I was given azithromycin. I'd previously been taking a medication for acne. These two medications interacted, and after that, I actually had to go to the intensive care unit. I had almost like a Stevens-Johnson syndrome-like drug reaction. This is in my second year of undergraduate training. And it was a very traumatic experience in the hospital setting, but I made it out alive and went back to school. And I was really curious about pharmacy after that. Well, how do medications almost change my life? I didn't know that this could happen to anyone. So not only because I had to actually withdraw from the organic chemistry class and biology class because I missed time and an exam. And if you're in a semester and you have to leave, I really couldn't finish the semester. I was behind all of my other classmates. That's what really got me to think more about pharmacy as a career. So I went into pre-pharmacy and I really wanted to learn and educate others, kind of about with the story that happened to me. Little did I know, though, that I started working at a community pharmacy, Walmart Pharmacy, in my undergraduate years, as well as when I went to pharmacy school. I went to pharmacy school in North Carolina at UNC Chapel Hill. And throughout my pharmacy school experience, every time I worked at that Walmart pharmacy, my eyes would turn red, specifically my left eye. And I went to different doctors, eye doctors, you name it. And they basically assumed that I had an allergic reaction, again, minor, to the sulfa. Sulfa was the component in the other medication I was taking, Bactrim, that I had an allergy to. And so here I am, allergic to working in a community pharmacy. And then I had my rotations at Duke University for going, and I thought, that was part of pharmacy school in my second year of pharmacy school. When I'm learning, I'm really allergic to the retail side. What would happen if I go to the hospital side? And I'm kind of brought back to the trauma I experienced in my own ICU stay. I'm very nervous. You hear about how preceptors can ask a lot of great questions. I would just be so scared. I was scared of going into I made it through my rotations, but I didn't feel comfortable in that setting. So here I am in pharmacy school, either allergic to or scared of the two most prevalent jobs ahead of a pharmacist anywhere, right? Whether you're going to go into community pharmacy or clinical pharmacy. So I had to really think, what am I doing with my life? But the good news is I also mentioned that my why was educating others. And so I kind of took that drive. My father's a professor. And so I thought, what can I do to position myself to go into academia? And that's really how things started. What am I going to do? How can I do academia without actually having to be in a clinical setting? Most residencies they have an academic component, but it's after you've done 1 year in a clinical side, at least here in the United States. And so I'm thinking feverishly, how can I avoid that? I'm scared of that setting. Even for my 4th year here, we do a lot of rotations. That's the part where we're doing a lot of that training. I tried to manage it so I had the least amount of time in the hospital rotations. I did non-traditional. I did an academic rotation with a really amazing professor who gave me a lot of great ideas. And one of the ideas I had was, can I do community residency? Here in the States, that's 1 year where you do in a community site. There are not as many residencies, but that's an option. And then your 2nd year, if you choose to do a 2nd year residency, it's typically at an academic institution if you're wanting to go towards the academia route. That was my plan. I plan a lot of things and they never turn out as I plan. I actually got intercepted in my 4th year around the time I was on those rotations. Someone at the School of Pharmacy kind of approached me and said, Janan, we've watched you with your creativity. I happen to be the webmaster, being the website person or the photographer for a lot of the organizations during my pharmacy school experience. They said, we watched you with all of the creative sense that you have, and you're really good at helping others. I did lead a lot, or I was a part of a lot of study groups. So we would love to have you do a non-traditional position with us. And it was a fellowship in educational technology, research and development. Essentially, that sounds really complex. Essentially, they asked if I would be able to, I went through the curriculum with them, right? I was just finishing up my 4 years. Could I be someone that helps the future students and help develop learning tools and different multimedia, using websites, using videography, and you name it, to train the next generation of pharmacists. So I did that for a year. I took a non-traditional route. I did a fellowship, and that taught me a lot and led the door open to my publishing job that I happened to be at the right place and right time at the American Pharmacists Association.
Wow.
And I started that the year after, right after I finished my fellowship, I started there in publishing books.
So what kind of books do you publish? Is it like general books or pharmacist books? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. That's a great question, and it will kind of explain my history. So I graduated in 2013, and now here we are in 2024, right? So I've had 10 years in 10 plus years now in the pharmacy world, but that's why when I introduced myself, I said a pharmacist at heart, but a publisher by day. And so the excellent question you asked, what am I publishing? For the first 7+ years of my career, I was publishing at the American Pharmacists Association. I did digital publishing. That's what I was first hired to do. A lot of online content, short form. But because I was in the department, I was the only pharmacist on the team alongside people who know everything about publishing. They had English degrees. They knew about how to put a book together. I love to read, but I never knew that side of publishing until being in that position. And so I essentially can define what I did for more than 7 years. I was a traditional publisher helping pharmacists publish pharmacy books. So I, for example, the Handbook of Non-Prescription Drugs, that is the premier book on anything you need to know about OTC products, from actual medications to do's and don'ts to, I mean, it's a huge textbook this large. And I got to work alongside and help manage the production and meet all the different authors and talk to the editor-in-chief about, hey, how should the book cover design look this year? And what's the paper quality like? I got to sample, different covers and do the most amazing, fascinating things as a pharmacist. And being a pharmacist mattered in that role because as I mentioned, the only pharmacist on the team, it was important to know what other students are seeking, what pharmacy information. For example, maybe a book about pharmacy law, right? Pharmacy law, or we published a book for pharmacist parents. We published a book about called The Peripheral Brain for the Pharmacist. That one of my ideas I had was, hey, we should publish this every year and increase and update with changes, for example. But pharmacists don't want all books to make it have the images of pills on it. That's a very obvious thing. A designer might think that, oh, this is a book for pharmacists, let's put some pills on there.
Yeah.
No, pharmacists work in dynamic roles, like through the interviews that you've seen and you're doing. So even career books and career information and content, I had a really beautiful time and experience publishing books about that. So for the majority of my career in publishing, I've worked with pharmacists and published pharmacy content. During the pandemic, I recognized something, that as I grew in my career, I also grew my family. I have 3 daughters. They're very young in age. During the pandemic in 2020, I had a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. They've grown since then. Now they're 4, 6, and 8. But at that time, I was the senior publisher at the American Pharmacists Association. I had an amazing job, as I mentioned, an amazing team, got to do amazing work. But at the same time, it was demanding.
Yeah.
A lot of time, a lot of energy. And I had 3 little ones at home, also wanting that same time and energy, and kind of also wondering, how am I in this book world and talking all about books, but not giving enough time to my family? And so that's really how I started my entrepreneurship as a pharmacist, slowly transitioned from having that job into a medical writing role. So I have done that, and I do continue to do that. I know one of your questions for me is, do I still work in pharmacy? So we can talk about that later, what I do related to medical writing as a pharmacist. But I started my own hybrid publishing company, which is called Global Bookshelves International. That I started in 2021. And then most recently, in the fall of 2023, I started a self-publishing consultancy company with another pharmacist I met, who I think you should meet too. Her name is Thierry Chim, and she's a UI UX designer, incredible person. And she and I started another company called Publishing in Doses to help a lot of the people that knew me for all these years, for these last 10 years, that come to me with publishing questions, that just want to self-publish their book. So I can give advice there, and I help people with any kind of book. Your main question was, what do I publish? Any kind of book. If it's someone wants to publish a book that's a children's book, if it aligns with what I'm looking for, it might be a Global Bookshelves book, or I can refer them. I love all things books, so I can refer them to, hey, I know of this publisher, you should apply there and submit your book. I have published memoirs for people, specifically healthcare providers. One, Dr. Salam Kabani, about her experience as an infectious disease pharmacist, and then getting long COVID and her life and how she's managed that and handled that. That's a book I've published. I published a book also for a physician who did a lot of relief work around the world, and what it's like to be a physician in the United States and go abroad, and how that impacted her in her life. So I also have a book that I'm helping a pharmacist comedian, Corey Jenks, publish. A lot of exciting books to come. So I do work a lot with pharmacists, but non-pharmacists work with me as well.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that now you switched from working as a group, then now you've started your own consultancy. These are the stories that I really love to hear, people just doing things outside the norm. So I actually listened to one of your sessions where you were speaking to people, the TEDx, and you were talking about something like there's a book for everything. There's a quote that you say that, yeah, there's a book for for everything, there's a book for that. And it really caught me, and it was really interesting the way you actually explained everything. So can you really take us through now your journey, why you felt this represented? So can you just give us a brief about that, which led you into just wanting to publish a book?
I think that I truly believe that the quote you're referring to is exactly as you said. There's a book for that.
Yes.
And, who out there listening, maybe you're listening to this episode because you're curious about the different career series that we have here. Maybe you're listening because you want to improve in your life in some way. That's a lot of great reasons why you should be listening to podcasts, because podcasts are a great way to learn more. I believe books are as well. And truly, no matter the topic, whether it has to do, I'm a parent, so I'll say whether it's parenting related or self development related or career related, career progression, there's truly a book for that. If you've gone to the library or you've gone to a bookstore, you can talk to the bookstore owners or a librarian or a fan of books. There are so many people out there. And if you're wondering, actually, I just posted one day about something and saying, I wish I had better knowledge or understanding about finances. And a friend of mine who's a pharmacist, Kate Kozart, she said, there's a book for that. In the way you say, she'd heard my TEDx talk and she said, Janan, there's a book for that. And here's the book I recommend. And it was so beautiful. Not only did she recommend the book, she tagged the author who wrote it. And you won't believe it. After that comment that she wrote, the author reached out and said, Janan, I have workshops on my topic. So after you read the book or listen to the audiobook, if you want to engage, I do master classes. And I'm just blown away to tell you that we're living in an age. Not only is there a book for that, but the authors and these brilliant minds are so accessible. Whether it is listening to a podcast episode with them speaking or hearing them on their own podcast or reading their book, it's such an intimate thing to be able to hear the inner thoughts. And if you're bold enough, this is my advice for anyone, whether it's career or otherwise, try to reach out to people that have published or that are speaking. And it's the same way we connected. Reach out. You never know what beauty can come when you connect with someone. The true connection, rather than being a bystander and reading, like feeling separated behind a screen, or the world is so close and people are craving that connection that I'm more honored. I think you said you're honored to have me. I'm more honored to be here to give you, I'm really excited to be here to speak with you. And I thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, I just want you to tell me about a day in your life as a publisher. So, how does your day start and how does it end? So, just take me through that.
Wonderful. So you're going to hear the day in the life of a publisher with small children. I'll add that part. So my days usually start much earlier than the rest. I do believe in the power of early rising. So I wake up before the rest of the house purposefully. So I have some time to plan my day. The day before, I've already planned what is on my calendar. A lot of things have been planned way in advance, but I kind of take a moment and I see what is on my plate. A lot of times it's full of different meetings, whether it's with different authors or a project that I have to do some deep work on that I have to work on, or it's something for myself or my family. But the day starts in solitude. Very soon after, the chaos of the getting my three children ready for school, I take them. My spouse is a huge part of our morning. He's a pharmacist also. My husband works from home as a specialty pharmacist here in Louisville, Kentucky. So we start the day, the children are off at school, and then it's my time again. I have more or less uninterrupted time from about 8:30 a.m. until I pick my children up at 3:30 p.m. So during this time, as I mentioned, it's a series of whether I'm meeting with someone, and now I'm thankful. Sometimes it's in person because it's people here in Louisville. Sometimes I travel to Cincinnati. I think meeting in person is really a beautiful thing. I'd been avoiding it for a long time, saying Zoom can handle everything, but it's time again to go out in the real world. And sometimes it's meeting people once again and talking about paper quality and physically touching books and really having an understanding of what and why. Why are people publishing? I'm still very much in a discovery phase for the latest endeavor that I mentioned, publishing in doses, my self-publishing consultancy. I really want to make sure I help people and meet them where they are. So I'm very curious. I offer free discovery calls because I just want to know what people are craving and I want to serve them at the best of my ability with the limited time that I have.
Mm.
And so that's my day. I do a lot of things. It's creative, it's fun. Sometimes it's hard work. It's not all fun. It's business. It's getting royalty reports together to pay the authors from the last quarter.
Mm.
It is making a decision of what things I'm going to say no to.
Mm.
Sometimes it's applying for the next thing that I want to speak. One of the things that I have an effort towards, even though I mentioned it's a day as a publisher, I'm an aspiring speaker. I want to speak more and be paid on stages to do that. And so I'm very curious. I'm always growing, always learning. And yeah, that's my typical day. After 3:30 is when the chaos starts again, when I have my children, but some afternoons we have taekwondo, so we're very disciplined in that. As a family, I am myself in taekwondo, the martial art, and I learn a lot about myself. It's a very reflective process. It's a physical process as well. So there's exercise of the mind and body that I do there. That's 3 evenings a week. And then the other evenings, it's managing their work or sometimes my children's schoolwork, cooking, cleaning, family time. And one other thing that I commit to that's every 2 weeks that I encourage those that are listening to consider Toastmasters. Toastmasters is an organization that has changed my life. It has helped me express myself through words. There's an improv component where you just randomly have to speak, as well as a prepared speeches component. So I've learned about both, and I've been in the program for 2 years. It's a club, and I'm in the local division. A lot of the times during the pandemic, I was doing it on Zoom. Nowadays, I go. It's held. Our meetings are held at the local library, and I take my children with me and my spouse, and they're around. They're reading books around in the library while I'm giving speeches or listening and being a part. It's a really exciting organization that I really recommend people if you haven't heard of it, Toastmasters.
Well, thank you so much for that and for just introducing also that organization to my audience. So now I just want to find out if there's any skill set that is required for someone to become a publisher. So do you like require any unique skills, or do you just become a publisher like that? So what are some of these like requirements?
Well, I'm guessing a lot of your audience is going to be pharmacists. And if
Yeah.
that's the case, I think what's going to be great is as a pharmacist, you would make a great publisher or writer or editor because by nature, I will generalize that most pharmacists are very detail oriented. That is a characteristic that I recommend for anyone that's doing anything in the publishing world. Detail oriented, sincere. They believe in research. I think having any content that I produce, whether even if it's a children's book, I think fact checking and having evidence based knowledge behind what we're saying or making sure that we're saying things that are accurate. Pharmacists care about that. And I think that's a transferable skill. And that's why I think I make a great publisher. I think anyone can do what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything that's, there's no secret behind what I do. I think practice, I said this in my TEDx talk as well, but practice makes progress. I don't think practice makes perfect. I have been doing this for 10 years and I've learned a lot along the way about the do's and don'ts. And again, if anyone is an aspiring publisher or author or editor or even medical writer, which is something I do. Another thing that I happen to do in my spare time, limited spare time. I don't do it too much, but I do pharmacy career coaching with a company called the Happy PharmD. And that's how I know, Dr. Jackie Boyle. And so that's how she and I initially connected. That's how we met through the Happy PharmD. And so I don't have that much bandwidth, but right now I take about one client every month. And typically it's clients that are trying to do non-traditional things in the pharmacy world, or they're trying to do something in academia or medical writing or something unique. And so it doesn't matter. I can help anyone with career coaching, but I've learned that if there's something that I can talk with through my experience, I think it helps be both a coach and a mentor. to someone.
Oh, thank you. And then another question is, what advice would you actually give a pharmacist who is stuck in the traditional role, but really wants to get out and like venture into an untraditional role? But maybe they are stuck there because they're afraid, or maybe they have bills, they don't know how to start. So, what advice can you actually give them?
That's an excellent question. And I will tell you, I felt stuck at one point because personally, I thought, oh my goodness, here I am. I worked for 7 years in at APHA publishing and doing these book publishing, and I felt just exactly like this pharmacist that you're describing. And it may seem strange, but let me kind of help paint the picture. Here I am. I am only licensed in North Carolina. I had lived in Washington D.C. area. I had lived in Maryland. I had lived in Virginia, and then I was at the time I was in Kentucky, where I am now. It's the height of the pandemic, and I'm feeling overwhelmed in my job. I loved it, but it was really, I didn't have enough time for myself and my family. So I was kind of feeling stuck, just like anyone out there that had taken a community pharmacy path, because I thought, oh my goodness, I can't even work in a community pharmacy until I get my license. I would have to get licensed here. So that was a barrier, right? Things that scare us are real. Sometimes they're true barriers. Like, I can't just quit my job. If I quit my job, what's going to pay the bills? That was a real fear I had too. So my advice for that person, just like me a few years ago, feeling stuck, because just like anyone listening, I didn't have the means to just take any job. I had to think, how can I utilize my skills? I didn't jump right into entrepreneurship either, because entrepreneurship I had never done. And pharmacists are we take calculated risks. And I think going from having a full time job and getting paid as a pharmacist to being an entrepreneur, that would have been a huge jump. I did start right after I left APHA, but I mentioned that the bridge for me was the medical writing job. I took a full time job. And so, my final advice, I told you my story. My advice for those listening is, if you have a passion, first identify what it is that you are interested in doing that is non traditional. So, you define the person as someone stuck in a traditional role, thinking about doing something non traditional. Step one is define and identify what it is that you want to do that's non traditional. Step two, instead of jumping from the traditional to the non-traditional, what bridge can you create? The bridge for some may be going part-time in their traditional role. The bridge for others may be finding a job that has related or transferable skills to their end goal. We can't always get from here to here in just one step. Sometimes it's a series of stairs, right? So the question is, how can you keep making progress? Don't seek perfection. I think perfection holds a lot of our pharmacists back, right? So it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be messy to go from a traditional to a non traditional. But what are those steps, and identify it for you? For me, it was making a bridge and for me, my fears were, I needed business coaching. I didn't know anything about starting a business. So, in order to get a business coach, I needed finances to hire a coach. That's why I took that bridge. So, what are the things that you need? Identify them. Identify those steps that are going to get you from here to here, and make a plan. Once you make the plan, it'll be easier. And it wasn't not overnight. It's never overnight for anyone. But once you create that plan, you can see that plan and you can live that plan.
Wow, thank you so much for the encouragement. And guys, we are coming to the end of this video. And please, Janan, if there's anyone maybe who's watched this and they want to reach out to you, maybe how can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. I am the only Janan Sarwar on LinkedIn, so you can absolutely connect with me there. That's a great professional place. I encourage everyone to be utilizing LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can follow me. I'm known as Book Janan. So my social media and my website is bookjanan.com. My socials on Instagram and everywhere is Book Janan, BookJanan. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for the opportunity again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And guys, if you have questions for her, please leave them in the comment section. Please, I know you like this video, so just give it a thumbs up. And thank you so much for just coming. I really appreciate like you just coming and talking to my audience. So thank you so much, everyone, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.